What's up, everybody? This is Charlie Potter, senior team writer with BamaOnLine.com, joined by BOL publisher Tim Watts. And Tim, we got some quarterback news to talk about. We waited a little bit because it was a weird Monday of how all this unfolded. And then here we are on Tuesday. We've actually heard from Ty Simpson and Ryan Grubb. But on Monday, Alabama officially named Ty Simpson as starting quarterback. It's a move that we expected for a while. I think we expected it to come a week later. We've talked about it on this show, just kind of giving everybody a heads up. But at 10 a.m. on Monday at a team meeting, Kalen DeBoer told the whole team. Before that, actually, DeBoer, Grubb, and Nick Sheridan told all three quarterbacks. So what has been a long-expected move, and I don't want to say a worst-kept secret, is now out to the world. So when you heard that on Monday, what was your initial reaction?
We heard that he had been told, and we spent a little time tracking it down, of course. And the fact that it was 10 a.m. when he was told and it didn't get out till 5 a.m., that is the modern day miracle. That is the miracle. 7 hours for that thing to keep a secret. But like you said, I don't think it was surprised. And we kind of had the timeline down. I think most expected Simpson. Everything led us to believe Simpson. So it was good to see out there because, you follow these guys through recruiting and you want to see them have some success. You want to see them get chances. And I mean, Ty's going to get his chance. I know what a big day it had to be for him and his family. And, I think we all, if you're a sports fan, you all root, not that he was an underdog, but you root for that guy that, digs in deep, the Mac Jones, the Smitty who comes back for his senior year, Najee came back. You root for those guys that give a little bit extra, a little bit more faithful. And I think Ty checks every one of those boxes. So I was extremely happy for him and his family.
Yeah, it's a rare occurrence these days to see a guy wait his turn, lose out in a quarterback battle in 2023, and then choose to stick around after the coach that he committed to retires and completely buy into a new staff. So yeah, it's almost in this day and age of college football, it's a rarity, and it is nice to see Ty get rewarded like that. He's been a good dude to deal with throughout his career. I'm sure we'll deal with him a lot more now that he's the starting quarterback. We'll hear from him a lot more. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a situation where Kalen DeBoer and the staff informed the quarterbacks, they informed the team, and they probably didn't expect it to get out as quickly as it did. I think this is something they did similarly at Washington, and it took 2-3 days for the Michael Penix news to trickle out. But Alabama's a little bit different bird than Washington. And so we look at it, though, we've heard from Ryan Grubb now. We've heard from Ty Simpson. And with Ryan Grubb, he was just flat out asked, why now? And he talked about how Ty's been very safe with the football. Not safe's probably the wrong word there. He's taken care of the football. He hasn't turned it over. He's only had one interception throughout fall camp. They've had 11 days of practice now. So not only is the ball security there, the playmaking's there. He's been in command. That's a word he's used a lot with Ty Simpson. So when you see the kind of level of confidence from a Ryan Grubb who didn't recruit this guy, who came in with a quarterback he's familiar with and a quarterback that's kind of new to the system that he can kind of mold, to hear him say things like that about Ty Simpson, just what's your reaction to that?
First I want to comment on the fact you said in this day and age, it's not people don't stick around. I looked up in his class and the top 10 quarterbacks in the Rivals industry rankings. Had 6 of them have already transferred. 2 of them are starters, Clemson and Penn State. They were starters last year, returning starters. The only 2 that stayed were Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson. And, of course, Gunnar was, helped along a little bit by Carson Beck defecting to Miami, though. But that's the only 2 there that stuck that haven't started. So that speaks a lot. And then you look around. You also commented on the coach he left retired. Well, look at everybody else. You got Julian Saying at Ohio State, who's expected to be the starter, Eli Holstein at Pitt, and Dylan Lonergan today was announced. So all those not only with other places made smart decisions, so they're going to be starting. But yeah, going back to Ty and just the kind of person he is and everything he did, Ryan Grubb is not a guy that's going to lack confidence. He's a guy that's going to speak his mind. He's going to come in there. And for me, I think a big part of this for Ty that was a win-win. You kept your head coach, obviously, with Kalen DeBoer. Last year's offensive coordinator, Nick Sheridan, is still there as your quarterback coach. So there's a familiar ear. And then you get Ryan Grubb, who I don't know of anybody who doesn't think he's some kind of offensive play calling guru. Really good at what he does, very aggressive. So I think it's a win-win-win for Ty Simpson. The guys behind him, I don't think this is a shocker to them. They're in those rooms day in and day out. Russell, we knew from the recruiting process, he was built similar to Ty. Like, I'll wait my time. I'll take that opportunity when it comes to me. I'm gonna take advantage of that. And I think all that just kind of fell in line with what you expected with Alabama. But yeah, Grubb said great things. And what do you say? There's been 4 total interceptions the whole practice season or something, and Ty's thrown one of them. That's quite a secondary. That's quite a defense he's facing to hear those kind of praise. So I don't think they hand that out lightly. And again, to name him this early, it's not that early, but it's early enough to say, hey, here's the confidence builder. This is your team. Go take it. There's no more uncertainty.
Yeah, I mean, even just in the old regime, like you kind of got to that second scrimmage and then you really knew where you were in the pecking order. Do it this early, I think, says a lot about their vote of confidence. And Ty, and then you kind of mentioned the coordinator changes he's gone through. This is his 4th coordinator in 4 years. And he was actually asked about that on Tuesday, and he kind of looked at it as a blessing to some degree because he's gotten to learn from so many different coaches. And so with Ty, like, he obviously was in the mix in 2023 when Bryce Young left. It was him and Jalen Milroe. They bring in Tyler Buckner. Those 3 kind of battled it out, and Jalen Milroe came out on top. But he's someone that has learned from those opportunities. He talked about the lessons and the messaging from Nick Saban, just in terms of, focusing on what's important, not focusing on the external noise and what everybody else says. 'Cause I think Ty in the past got down on himself a little bit, but now he's a 4th-year player. He's going into his redshirt junior season, and I think he's as confident as he's ever been. And he's also stepping up as a leader. I mean, Ryan Grubb talked about him on Tuesday. He talked about how fiery he is and the kind of swagger he has. So I think, like, it's just kind of buzzword city, but whenever you're naming the starting quarterback, that's what you want to hear.
Yeah, and you make a good point about the offensive coordinators. While Ty's recruitment wasn't really dramatic, it's probably a little traumatic for him. You look at, like, he was recruited by Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee. There was talk Jeremy might hire his dad, then he was fired. He was recruited by Steve Sarkisian initially, who left. Bill O'Brien closed the job, and then he left. So he's had like a lot. Plus, his dad's a coach. He's had a lot of relationship with coaches. I can attest he's one of the nicest guys in the world, too. I mean, I was up in Tuscaloosa sometime before the summer, and Ty Simpson just walked up and introduced himself to me. I don't think he had a clue in the world that I'd covered him in recruiting, and just walked up and introduced himself. Jeremy Bernard did the same thing for absolutely no reason, just really guys that came in respectful and did all that. So you can see the leadership ability. You can see what he is, and he's kind of that old school quarterback, because we've seen a lot of flash with some of the bigger names quarterbacks, not at Alabama, but throughout the nation. It's a hard position to be humble at, but I think Ty has kind of paid those dues and worked his way to this point. He's probably going to see it a little bit different perspective, I think, than a lot of guys that we're used to. I mean, even Mac Jones had that, that persistent swagger, that confidence that he did. I think Ty had to build into that, and I think, he's ready now. This is his shot.
He's gotten over a lot of the lack of confidence I think he maybe had, and he was probably his own worst enemy. He's a coach's kid. He's been around the game, and I think now he's in a better mental spot than maybe he was in the past. And it's kind of funny because, like, when we talk about him, it almost sounds like a rags to riches story or like an underdog story, but this guy was the number 2 quarterback in the country in his class. I think like Cade Klubnik was the only guy ahead of him. I wanted to kind of take a trip down memory lane with you. Just what do you remember about him as a recruit and kind of the process of him choosing Alabama?
Well, even then, he was Clemson's top quarterback prospect. They went to Cade after. Now, they might have rewritten their history, as we all tend to do, but Ty was their focus at the time. They were pretty upset when he chose Alabama. He was the number 1 priority for Jeremy Pruitt when he was at Tennessee. He really kind of tipped his hand. He went all in with his visits. He only took 1 official visit. Like I said, wasn't a lot of drama with him other than maybe he's going to Tennessee. Jeremy could hire his dad, who is a college coach, to Jeremy's gone, open it up. Dabo and those guys really wanted him. But with Alabama, I think he visited Ole Miss too. So it was very quiet considering he was a 5-star prospect, put up amazing numbers, had really good film. But you're right. People go straight to he could be a good game manager. We see that a lot. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not, no offense to anybody, but Greg McElroy was a 3-star if you want to label him a game manager. I mean, Greg made some huge plays that national championship year. People say that about AJ McCarron, but AJ obviously was a super talented guy too. He's not, he's not. Those guys weren't at the level of a Bryce, but Ty was that 5-star guy. We've seen him run it. We've seen him flash the arm and do all those things. So from a talent standpoint, a skills standpoint, he has a lot that you're going to look at. But you're right. There's no underdog. He just had to patiently wait his turn behind some guys that were some pretty good football players, and all of them are, in the NFL now.
Yeah, that playmaking ability, like in this past weekend scrimmage, I think he had a long touchdown pass to Isaiah Horton, which they are now kind of reunited after being on the camp circuit in Tennessee. But the play that I heard the most about is he had this kind of scramble around play where he found Jam Miller for a touchdown. And it was reminiscent of those high school days, because even Ty today, being asked, describe yourself as a quarterback, your typical media questions whenever you're out there with him for 10 plus minutes, he didn't hesitate to say, I'm a dual threat guy. So, Alabama's had some of those guys. Clearly he's not a Jalen Milroe. I don't think anybody is from an athleticism standpoint. No. We see what that guy's doing for the Seahawks in the preseason, but when you remember him as a recruit, how much does that dual threat ability kind of stick in your brain a little bit?
I mean, it's so unfortunate that you can't really use the highlight with the long run he had because he dropped the ball early. Yeah. But if you have a run that long, you got something going on for you. That's not easy to do. There's not a lot of quarterbacks in the history of Alabama that can make that run. He is athletic. His scrambling ability keeps his head up when he's moving around. It's there, the ability to run. He's not Jalen Milroe. I mean, that's absurd. I don't even know if there's many in the NFL that are at the level of Jalen Milroe, toting the mail from the quarterback position. I just think he's as elite there is. But other guys, he's going to run better than a Bryce Young, obviously a Mac Jones. A lot of those guys, Coke, or a lot of those guys that we've seen, he's going to run better than those guys. And I think he's going to be smart with the run. So it's something he can pull down and run. He's not going to be a big guy just sitting back there. And he's not going to be a bully runner like Coker was, who, Coker ran like a defensive end on some kind of trick play, but he's going to have that speed. It's a pretty big guy, but I think they want him to pass the ball the most. I think they want him to throw the ball. And if you look, that's another thing. He's got probably the best starting wide receiver core in the SEC, right? I can't think of one that's better. I mean, Jeremy Ryan, Isaiah Horton, you got some guys coming in behind a pretty deep room. So he's got talent there. We expect him to have a pretty talented offensive line as well. You got Cuevas and some other talent at tight end. So you're kind of looking at the running back position. Jam, we know, but he's got talent around him. So we know this isn't a situation where he's got to do it himself. I do agree that's where the game manager can come in. Don't beat yourself, kind of like AJ. Don't make mistakes and that kind of stuff. But I don't think you want him too hesitant. I think you want him to, live on the edge a little bit, especially with those guys he's got who can go up and fight for a football.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard it from Kalen DeBoer throughout the offseason. Just they want a playmaker at the quarterback position. I don't think Kalen's ever really even used the term game manager when talking about quarterbacks. That's kind of a given now. That's kind of, just blended into the responsibilities. You got to be able to manage the game, but they need guys to be able to make plays. And with the wide receiving core that he has around him, with the talent at the other positions, just what are your expectations for this offense now that we know for sure that Ty is going to be on the field August 30th against Florida State?
I mean, I think the three guys, and we said this when Horton transferred in, I think the three starting wide receivers that we see all complement each other. They're bringing a little bit different from each and every one of them. They're a little bit different. I mean, I see Jeremy Bernard. He's kind of like that Mechie role that I felt for Bryce. And that's why I thought it was such a big deal to lose Mechie. Obviously, J-Mo didn't help, but Mechie was that security blanket. When Bryce ran around and scrambled, he'd come back to the ball. I think Jeremy's going to have that kind of experience and come back possession guy and make those plays. Ryan's Ryan. He's dynamo. He's going to do whatever he wants. And Horton, he's got that long length. He's not a 4.4 burner, but he is long. He's got catch radius. He's physical. If you look at him, he's very impressive physically. And Cuevas, he's a tight end. We talked about him the other day. It's a hilarious recruiting story. We were on the edge of our seat with Keon Saab transferred in. We knew about it Friday. Monday, it's finally, we're allowed to break it. And then Cuevas at 10 o'clock out of the blue puts a homemade edit out when I'm going to Bama. And we're like, what the hell's happening? We're saying, is this a red shirt or what? They're like, no, he's really good. So, I mean, obviously he's got that potential and they like him and he can fit in there. So I think the wide receivers, we're not getting into Rico and Latzir and Jalen Hill and Cole Adams, all guys, especially some that are healthy, if they can be healthy, can impact it. But I would be really happy if I was a quarterback, first-year quarterback, and had that wide receiving core. I feel really confident having those playmakers and a couple guys I trust on that offensive line too, there as well.
Yeah, I didn't think that Josh Cuevas was going to be catching strays for his editing ability on this show, but here we are. But I think when you can't help himself sometimes, it's just I think when you look at it too, like we heard from Ty Simpson on Tuesday, but they brought up Jam Miller, they brought up Josh Cuevas, they talked and had glowing reviews about Ty Simpson. Jam Miller is one of his closest friends in the team, and I think when you have that bowling ball senior running back as a close confidant, that's a nice one to have. I think he's got a close relationship with Parker Brailsford at center, several of the offensive linemen. I know Tim Keenan's a guy that's talked about like the cookouts that they have, but Ty's the guy that invites guys over. He's got NIL deals with places like Innisfree. The offensive linemen are getting in on the action there too. So I think he's a guy that the teammates like, they respect, and they have a good relationship with. And I think he's a big relationship guy too. So I think a lot of people are excited for Ty Simpson, and that includes the guys in the quarterback room. And we'll kind of get out of here on this. Obviously, we know who the starter is going to be, but now the question is, who's going to be the number 2 quarterback? Is it going to be Austin Mack? Has Keelan Russell done enough to kind of move up the pecking order a little bit? Ryan Grubb didn't really tip his hand either way. He talked about his messaging to both of those guys kind of being what you'd expect. Like, sure, a starter's been named, but like, it's not over. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep competing. So just what are your thoughts on those 2 guys, Mack and Russell, as they get closer and closer to the start of the season?
I'm going to go with Keelan just based on the history of how the sport works. You want to have – that's probably the future of your position at quarterback. And, I'm certainly not speaking for the Alabama staff, but he's your guy. He's, some people have him the number 1 quarterback in the country. We've seen enough to know how talented he is, and that's nothing against Austin Mack, who certainly looks like he's had his moments. But I want to prepare him because, you never know. Ty Simpson could go pro this year. He could be a guy, he's draft eligible. If he's has that kind of year that you expect, he would be a guy. Now, Ty's got the reputation of maybe being Damian Harris. They might have to drag him off campus, but he could definitely come back. But I'm saying he could have a year that puts him on the NFL radar, how the NFL is with quarterbacks and how they rise during that. So I'm getting my guy I think is the future, and I think that future is Keelan Russell. I just think he's that good. It has nothing to do with Austin Mack whatsoever. I just think Russell's that good. He has all the intangibles. I watched everything he's ever did at the prep level, and I watch every throw he makes that the university or you guys put out. And to me, he looks like a natural quarterback. And he had a trauma he went through without skipping a beat, a really tough pill to swallow that I can't even imagine having to deal with. And he's kind of held his own, very respected. And you saw how the people poured out, the people on the team, coaching staff poured out to his sister's funeral to back him up. So he's got some guys that definitely like him. And don't forget how close that recruiting class was. That's first full recruiting class for Alabama. They were so close. The mamas were texting each other, tweeting at each other. The kids, were really close. So I think there's a bond there that like you said about Ty being the leader, I think Keelan's going to have the same quality.
I think Keelan's had a good preseason camp. It sounds like he's just a guy, like when you talk about wanting a playmaker at that quarterback position, that's what he's been. I think he needs to probably take a little bit better care of the football. I think he could, learn a little bit more of the offense. Not saying that, he's faltering really in those areas, but, Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, they're going into their second year in this system. They know it a little better. That's just to be expected. So, it's going to be fascinating to see the young guy and how it plays out for him. I think Austin Mack, when you hear about him, it's just the arm talent, and that's kind of where it starts, the quarterback position. He's obviously very familiar with this offense, having transferred from Washington. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out, because I think over the course of the season, we'll see all 3. And not necessarily in meaningful moments, but they're going to want to get those other guys ready because, like you said, this could be Ty Simpson's last year at the collegiate level. We'll have to see how that plays out. But it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Alabama's season opener. What are we now? Today's the 12th. They're 18 days, 17 days till kickoff. I don't know. The message boards got me all screwed up because we got 2 different countdowns going on. But It's soon. It's under 3 weeks. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
But we'll be down in Tallahassee. We'll cover Ty Simpson's first start. And if you haven't, be sure to tune in to BOL, because Blake and I have posted a ton of stories from today. We've got full transcripts, full video. We'll have more in the morning because there's not enough hours in the day. And we'll be back talking more Alabama preseason camp later this week, next week. And then before we know it, we'll be at game week, Tim.
Looking forward to it. I'm ready to go. You ever get that? We get excited when I get to the, hey, first practice, can't wait to see what Charlie and Blake and Andrew come up with during that first one. Second one, I'm excited about. The third one, I'm like, oh my God, it's so far from kickoff. For the first day, it makes me think we're 10 days away. Then I realize we're we're a month away almost. So excited to be there. Y'all have done a great job. Covering the BOL has been. I mean, you got to pin the stories at the top because they run off the page. I'm always on Charlie about pin all that content so we can. I'm really talking about me. I don't want to search for it. I just want it right there to find.
Yeah, let's let the truth come out. Yeah, no, it's crazy because like we're in the second half of fall camp and like starters been named. Like we're rolling downhill. We'll be here soon, and of course we'll have everything covered. And like I said, we'll have more of these to come. So we'll see you guys on the next show.